Tim Cook went to Washington. Now, my favorite meme you've ever shared was the one that had Tim Cook looking a little bit like Montgomery Burns at in The Simpsons. If you don't remember that, he's got the hands in the mouth, looking a little devilish. You know, um, Apple's got this really interesting. Is at this interesting crossroads. I had the chance to talk to John Schwartz over at MarketWatch about this. He was covering this. So Tim Cook went to Washington to essentially talk about, privacy and how Apple's solving the privacy issues and how some of these global laws, such as the European Union's Digital Markets Act that's supposed to go into effect and is supposed to stop companies like Apple from being able to charge excessively for commissions on their app store. And he's basically saying, there's a ton of risk in this. And Pat, here's where I stand as someone who's a privacy advocate, but B, technologically knowledgeable. And I say, this is a real crossroads because Apple has spent a lot of time, energy, and money to get to a place in their technology that they believe they can keep people's data more secure. They've gone right after the likes of Meta and other social platforms using their what called their ID for Apple to slow down how companies like that are able to aggregate data without our permission to utilize it to target. So Apple's been somewhat of a hero in that in that capacity, but at the same time, it's all been in the name of building its own advantage. Like, don't for a minute think that this is all just some sort of altruistic Apple. Apple is building out services and products to compete with almost every part from streaming to media to, of course, their app stores, revenue streams, hardware. They want to own everything. So it's not we're doing this because we like people and we care about privacy, at least not in my opinion. I think it's more about Apple wants to control the ecosystem. So having an app store and having a methodology for keeping apps secure and having certain criteria to allow an app to be downloaded does provide a certain wave of privacy protection and data protection that you would open up risk when you sideload. Think about like a PC when you can, what originally was the PC versus the Mac, and what kept Mac safe for a long time was it was a smaller ecosystem. And that's kind of what these app stores are. It's a tighter, smaller, more controlled ecosystem. But at the same time, anytime you do a tighter, more controlled ecosystem, you are literally controlling that and you're charging certain commissions. So long story short, this new DMA law would create an extremely expensive proposition for Apple in all the fines they would see if they decided to not open up some of these things like the side loading. But at the same time, if they open all this stuff up, they could create a lot of new vulnerabilities into the Apple ecosystem and the Apple App Store that could create risk. So in the end, boiling this down, Tim Cook is fighting for control to be able to keep charging excessive commissions in the ecosystem that they have done a good job of creating a more safe and secure space. Having said that, I still stand by my word that Apple has the most outright obvious case of antitrust violation in the market right now with the App Store, and some sort of door has to be opened to not allow them to just continually raise these commissions to an excessive level to where they price so many companies out. So, Pat, I've got a lot more. We don't have enough time. I'm going to pass the mic to you on this one.
Yeah, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I mean, this is essentially Tim Cook defending monopolism using privacy. It's very simple. And I think the idea that Apple couldn't come up with a wrapper technology for side-loaded applications that gives users the ability to run their own privacy is just complete BS. This is the company that is smart enough to make their own processors, that they didn't invent the smartphone category, but they monopolized the profits in it. And one of the reasons for their monopolism is that they lock people in. They lock developers in, they lock users in, and even under the banner of things like courage. I mean, if Apple had courage, it would do a few things. It would open up iMessage to Android. It'd probably lose 10% market share in North America off the bat. I know I'd move my entire family over there. But second of all, it locks in, that they should open up to a side loading and put an extra level of security in there and privacy. They have the technology to do this. So I'm almost embarrassed for Apple, and I'm embarrassed for Tim Cook that he would go up to do this. But listen, I think that shows how important this topic is to maintaining Apple's monopoly activity and monopoly status.
Yeah, you make a great point. I think the only debate for us to have here is, can the technology that can be built outside to make sure what is brought in through side loading is as secure as the current, because again, that is the story about protecting user privacy and data. That's going to be a real challenge, but of course they have unbelievable resources at their disposal, and they could be spending money on that. And of course they're not, because instead what they're doing is raising rates on app developers so they can keep hoarding more and more of the profit. And I think that's why it's hard to feel bad for them. Having said that, I do feel genuine concern that other ways around systems, most people are not knowledgeable enough to know if they're being phished or scammed. And so they're going to have to really step up. And by the way, this isn't Apple's fault. I mean, Apple is malicious in their intent here for sure, because they can be. They're, like you said, monopolistic. This is the government's fault. We have antitrust regulators trying to go after Amazon's 1% market share of private label, which again, you need to pay attention to, but they're focused on that instead of what? And so this is one of the most obvious cases. I don't know what Lina Khan is doing here, but this is the one maybe she should put some of her attention on.